Okay, next up we have Susie Adams.
Hey, everybody. Okay, so how many people know what blockchain is? Oh, wow. Okay, everybody. How many people are currently doing a blockchain project? One. How many people are working with government in blockchain? One. Okay. So that is kind of the challenge with blockchain. So blockchain has a lot of hype today, right? Everybody's super interested in blockchain. In fact, if you talk to, or if you listen to Gartner or read Gartner, right, they have the hype curve, and they're telling people that there will be 2 hype curves with blockchain, and we're just on the first one, kind of at the top. All right, and I'll talk a little bit about why that's happening. Has anybody tried to do a blockchain proof of concept? Probably one. Okay. There's a central theme here. If you have, what typically happens when people try to use blockchain is that when they try to go and build a proof of concept, they have a difficult time, one, building it because there's a lot of technology involved and it's complicated, and there's lots of different blockchain technologies that you can choose from, and it means writing a lot of code right now. 2, when you try and implement this proof of concept, you're usually not getting rid of the technology that it's going to replace. So it's very difficult to prove to your CFO, as Guy mentioned, that it's actually going to save you money and there'll be a return on investment. And 3, there's a lot of political pressure in most blockchain type solutions because really what you're doing is getting rid of the middleman. And those middlemen make a lot of money. All right, so it really depends on what you're trying to do and what scenario it is. The other thing that we see when people try to use blockchain is not everything is a blockchain solution. Right, we see a lot of folks say, I want to play with blockchain, kind of like XML. Who remembers when you had to XML everything in government? And they just added XML to a program to check the box. We're seeing a little bit of that, especially in government, where they stand up a single node blockchain. Right? And that really doesn't accomplish anything as well. So I'm not going to go super deep into all the technology, because obviously we don't have a lot of time here. Well, what I want to do is just kind of set the stage for what Microsoft is thinking about this technology. And how we want to really fit into this ecosystem and help our customers be able to implement blockchain solutions, POCs first, obviously, and then production solutions. Right now, I don't believe there's more than 1, 2, or 3 blockchain production solutions that are out there today. Right? Major banks are playing around with this. There's lots of folks that are working this. They are growing, but there aren't very many production systems out there. All right, so if I go back in my background, and what makes this really cool is, how many people know what BizTalk Server is or does application integration? Okay, so the very first time I heard about blockchain, I got super excited because I understood the concept. Right? It's exchanging data between 2 groups. Right? And when you think about, Guy said, data, there'll be data wars. Right? You can exchange data inside an agency, inside an organization, but where it really gets complicated is when information has to exchange hands between corporations that either are separate, maybe they're still in country, or maybe they're outside of the country. Think about the manufacturing world. That's probably the easiest one to think about. Think about, or how many people have ever done anything on the medical side? In a previous life, before Microsoft, I actually worked with the company that created defibrillators, right? The very first portable defibrillators. And I learned a lot about lots and lot numbers and how important it was to keep track of every single piece, right, that went into that defibrillator product. And you had to track it from the time it left the manufacturer to the time it was produced and where it got shipped to. All right, and that was extremely complicated. How do you know that that data hasn't been manipulated? How do you track the chain of custody? How do you make sure, right, that data hasn't been changed in some way? This is the problem that blockchain will really be able to help us with. Anything that you need to trust, right, and it's all about trust and trusting that data that the chain of custody of that data, and that data's not been modified or changed over time. Right? And it is like, for example, in government now, people are thinking about, what if I were to use and have hands over time, right? And that if you could go back hundreds of years to do that, right? So there's some interesting implications. So from a technology perspective, right, when I look at, and we'll use the manufacturing example, when I look at how we build applications today, multi-tier applications, whether they're legacy or cloud, right, we're used to building an application where the data boundary is inside a particular organization, where you're getting insight, data insight, whether it's from big data or whether it's data analytics, right, from inside that boundary as well. Right? And that's also your trust boundary. And this is probably at the crux of everything, because you don't really trust that other person on the other side. So what happens when you need to exchange data? How do you trust that the retailer is who they say they are? GSA just put an RFI out to do exactly that. How do I know that the people that are on the GSA schedule are actually certified, right, and the real vendors that we can trust? How do we know that somebody's not spoofing the system, right, and actually impersonating that particular vendor and giving perhaps bad parts to the military to construct tanks or weapons? Right? It's a difficult problem. Right? We have people that go in and look for that fraud on a regular basis. But what if you could actually, right, verify that without having to have these intermediaries involved? So today, if I want to exchange data, how many people, EDI, ring a bell for anybody? Anybody do anything with EDI? Painfully so, right? This is how we used to exchange between organizations. You had an EDI data format, you'd send it over on some type of data transport, and you'd get that information back and you'd consume it, right? You have an EDI transaction. And if you're exchanging money, there's always a third-party clearinghouse. How many people wire money to another bank? It's painful. How many days do you have to wait? 3 days on average, right? And it's expensive because those third parties are making a lot of money, right? They're verifying, right? And they're giving you the trust that you need to be able to verify both sides of this. Right? What if you could get rid of that middleman and you could do business directly with individuals, right? Or different people, or different banks, or different organizations, or if government or citizens could deal directly with government? What if there was a single identity for every person in the world? Think about what that would do for human trafficking, right? It'd be very difficult then for somebody to impersonate somebody. So it's very interesting. I mean, the types of things that you can apply this technology to, or this concept to, and I won't say this technology because it is not a single technology, are pretty endless. So if you could have a single trust boundary, right, or trust blockchain, right, or node chain, and you could exchange data securely on that, what would that look like? And that's really what blockchain's all about. Right? So if we look at it, I'll build this out a little second. What this does give you, and I'll show you an example in a second, in the manufacturing world for, it's actually automotive, which will hit home for folks that have any recalls going on in their car right now. What it does, though, is give you visibility. When you have the ability to trust inside without that middleman, you can now get really valuable insights, right, from the entire end-to-end process that you couldn't get before. If I exchange data with a company X over here or agency Y, I didn't know anything about what that agency was doing. I can't get any information. I don't know what happened to the data when it went over there before it came back to me. But now, with blockchain, you would be able to look at this. So, what really is a blockchain? Right? It's a distributed database. It's a distributed ledger. Right? And the most famous type of this is Bitcoin. But the one type, the Bitcoin type of blockchain actually lacks one really big thing, and it's called a smart contract. And I'll talk about that in a second. But a transaction looks as simple as this, right? Bitcoin transactions are also, I think, only 86 characters, which is really limiting. Right? Oh, you can see that. Sorry, Lily. Yeah. Okay. All right, so a transaction is just a text file with some information that's encrypted. The transport's encrypted. Depends on what type of blockchain technology to what that network looks like. And it's a distributed database. So it's not a centralized database. I'm no longer storing my information about my application or my data inside a single centralized database in my organization. It's going to be distributed, and it's going to be distributed in a series of nodes that's trusted by that particular trust. I call it a trust chain, right, for in layman's terms. So everybody joins, the people that you want to exchange and do business with, join that trust chain. They all have nodes, and every single transaction is replicated to every single node in that trust chain. Make sense? Okay. What really adds, right, the capabilities to blockchain is smart contracts. And you can think of it as just code that's going to run on every single node. And that code can be written in C# and a variety of different languages. And basically, it's allowing you to apply business logic to each of those transactions. And these transactions, you can only create a transaction. You can never update that transaction. Right? So it's a chain of transactions chained together, right? And then you apply business logic to it. So as I said before, if we look at the state of where we're at today, how do you actually create an application, a blockchain application, or build, right, a blockchain where people trust one another and they're all going to host nodes? And how many people are actually going to feel comfortable letting their code or their data go over to another business partner and live in their data center or in that cloud or somebody else's cloud, right, and just trust that all those transactions that run their business on a daily basis, whatever that business may be, on a daily basis? And that's one of the biggest challenges, right, that we see in adoption of this, plus the middlemen is kind of the force, because they don't really want that to happen. The other piece is the failing, right? So I'm going to give you an example, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about how Microsoft wants to actually help this ecosystem. So in the automobile industry today, right, networks span multiple countries. There's suppliers all over the world, right, and those suppliers change. Right? They bid and get best bids and recompete these suppliers all the time. But as we know today, there are constantly recalls now. And a lot of this, right, is due to the suppliers not being who they say they are. Being able to validate that the suppliers can actually produce the parts that they said they could, or that they're counterfeit parts, better yet, and nobody can track those parts. Right? Think of the out-of-control gas pedals that were out there. We're pretty sure that the manufacturer of the car did not want to go out and kill people and build, cars, but they went out and they probably got the lowest price, or somebody spoofed the system with counterfeit parts. Right? So they didn't even know it was happening in some instances. So what if, right, you could create an intelligent connected system where the manufacturer, right, would put out design specifications. They would securely store those design specifications in blockchain with a supplier. The supplier who participates in this blockchain would look at that information, which is stored in a shared ledger, right? So now that the suppliers have the nodes that are also getting these updates, right? And they're going to create digital product memories. You can think of the provenance of the data, the raw materials used, right, where the parts are coming from, and they're going to record those transactions in blockchain. And they're all going to be chained together, right, as supporting that particular part from that specification from that manufacturer. Right? Now imagine that your car, which now can be Internet of Things capable, right, could actually gather telemetry about how you drive your car. And if you let it, right, you could then lower your insurance by allowing your insurance company to see this based on how you drive with artificial intelligence, and that's stored on the blockchain. You could also, from that same telemetry you're getting from your car, right, enhance the driver experience based on performance data back to the manufacturer. And all this is protected and encrypted and immutable. You cannot change it. Right, all the way back. Now, clearly, there's some issues with privacy that I think everybody might have a challenge with this. But you kind of see where this is going. So blockchain itself usually isn't the solution. It's blockchain plus a whole bunch of other technology that needs to be wrapped around it. Right? It's really an enterprise application integration challenge with now a secure distributed database, that is write-only, right, and encrypted. And it builds on. So how does Microsoft want to fit in? So, and I'll go ahead and, on the lowest level, obviously we want to be able to provide Azure, a cloud platform, but also, right, Windows Server on-premise, or our Azure Stack service, right, running on-premise. Right, we want to be able to allow you to use the blockchain technology of your, whichever of your choosing. We have kind of standardized our company and our approach, or at least we're in a consortium with Ethereum today. And the reason we picked this is because there was a lot of support behind it. It's not because IBM wasn't supporting it or any other vendor. It's because there were a lot of business partners who were picking up on this. And the only way we could think to get blockchain as a technology going was to standardize on one, put a lot of effort behind it, get a lot of partners involved so that we could actually get some successful POCs and production environments out there. We really don't care what blockchain technology you use. Right? And I'll say that again. All this today for us is open source. We want to be a good player in this ecosystem. Right? We don't want to lock you into a single blockchain strategy. This is an evolving technology. I mean, if you went to, and I was speaking to somebody from Microsoft who went to a training in March, the blockchain world has changed probably 360 at least since March. All right, so this technology is evolving quickly. In fact, in 2015, nobody was even talking about blockchain. All right, so we want to be as open and transparent about anything that's becoming new. We want to be able to support it, and we want to make it very, very easy for you to deploy nodes, right, and allow people to join, right, that your blockchain trust circle. From an integration capability perspective, this really is an application integration problem. Right? And you can see there that there's a lot of other technology other than just blockchain. Right? I mean, you need to collect events, right, which are transactions. You need to record them. You might have to do some pre-processing on them. You might have to do some post-processing on them. You might have to run some business logic in an application or smart contract, or maybe outside. We have the ability now to do something called scriptlets that allows you to integrate technology on this with serverless computing. Right? You're going to want to probably store some of this information because it's a larger business process in a regular database, whatever that may be. Right? And then you're going to want to make sure that those transactions are recorded in blockchain. All right? So it's not just blockchain when you start to build these solutions. And I think that's where it starts to get really complicated for folks, because blockchain is just a piece of the integration stack. And then the thing that if you think of what Microsoft tries to do with most technology, whether it's business analytics, right, advanced analytics, whether it's big data, we try to democratize it and make it easy for people who don't know how to do all the work themselves. We try to make it easy for people to adopt it. So with data analytics, we now have Power BI. You don't have to be a data scientist anymore to get valuable insights out of complicated data schemas. Right? With big data, we wanted you to be able to deploy a Hadoop cluster in a matter of minutes instead of months, right? With 9 open source projects. That's exactly what we're trying to do with blockchain. We want to make it easy for you to pick a blockchain technology and be able to deploy an end-to-end scenario. Right? So it's pretty easy today. If you go into Azure today, you can go in and deploy a blockchain node. We have a wizard that takes you through doing that. You can allow other people to join, right, and prove who they are, and then deploy their nodes as well. Right? We've got that set up, but again, that's only a piece of the puzzle. That's not the whole thing. So how do we get this whole picture right here, right? And help you build an app that looks like this, so your customers have no clue that there's blockchain behind the scenes. You're actually building the application, and blockchain happens to be just under the hood. Right, so that's really what we wanted to do in general, and I'll talk in a second. I'll tell you what we've done with our consulting services team to help people proof of concepts easily. From a collaborative landscape, I think I already talked about this. We are part of the Ethereum Alliance, but we also have business investments in Chain, Corda, Blockstack, right, and a number of other technologies. We are, again, trying to be just a good partner in this ecosystem and we see a huge value in blockchain, frankly, just huge. And we want to make sure that the technology takes off and that businesses will see the return on investment from using it. Because we just think it'll change a lot of the way that we do business today and make it easier for people to actually be more innovative. And again, I already talked about why. Right? And so when we say, how many times have you gone to a customer and they said, I really want to do blockchain? Come on. I've had customers say, that's a really cool technology, I want to use it. Right? And they think of it as just a smart contract in a ledger, distributed database. Right? It really looks like this. And when you show them this, they go, oh my God, how much is that going to cost? Right? I mean, really, I mean, and I don't know if anybody from GSA is here, but I would love to seeing the quotes they got back. Right? I think they had $175,000 for the proof of concept. I'm not sure anybody can really do it for $175,000 because it wasn't the blockchain technology that really needed, right, that was expensive. It was all the integration around it that was going to be the expensive part. How do you actually build that business process, deploy that business process, get the business partners and nodes stood up? We've actually simplified that. That's actually pretty easy now. The problem is the business process around it. And so what we've done is we introduced kind of a proof of concept framework to help you do this that we call Project Lexington. We just announced this. The idea here is it's a framework, a repeatable framework that you can use with a bunch of scripts that will deploy a lot of this, the standard types of things you need to do for you, and it's configurable. Right, so I'm not going to go into Project Lexington today. If you want, or if you are conducting a proof of concept, we have a team, an MCS team, that is actually working on Project Lexington proof of concepts. In fact, we have a small army now of blockchain folks that are willing to do proof of concepts with customers. Using this Project Lexington to kind of drive down that cost. A $300,000 proof of concept is not really feasible for most people, right? We need to get that way down to like 100,000, right? Then it becomes something that people might want to play with, to better understand, right? To know what they're getting into so that when they do have a big opportunity, they'll be able to decide whether it's a right fit. Okay, I probably went pretty fast. With that, I'll open it up for questions. Everybody said they knew blockchain.
All right, we got a question up front.
Can you let us know what are the main costs? Why is it costing $300,000? What are the main pieces which are expensive? I mean,
it's all these pieces. So if you look at, I mean, this to me looks like a BizTalk schedule. Anybody remember those? Okay. Nice little workflow. Everybody knows how to design them and draw them, right? We now have lots of workflow tools that you can plug and play in here. Right? There's lots of pieces. You got to write a lot of code to do this stuff. Right? You got to integrate with a lot of external systems. I'll just use the GSA one because it's top of mind for me. If you look at all the different disparate systems that GSA wanted you to integrate with, it was a long laundry list. Right? How do you actually integrate with these systems? What APIs are available? Are there APIs? Are they COBOL systems? Where are they? Right? How do I get data in and out of it? How do I securely get data in and out of it? Where do I store the data once I get it out and I'm moving it through my process? And so that's what becomes expensive. It's not the actual writing the ledger, right, and chaining them together or creating the nodes. That's just the secure distributed transaction piece of it. Now you need to still do everything else you needed to do. And I think that's where, it's still, some of these can be very large projects. So it's good to start out small, right? And not keep the amount of systems you have to integrate to in a proof of concept to a minimum, all right? Just enough for you to prove out the technology. Make sure that you have additional business partners that you're going to exchange with, because a one node proof of concept is not a proof of concept. It's not proving anything. You definitely need to set up, 3 or 4 nodes, 2 or 3 nodes at a minimum, right, to be able to do this. But I would start small and then build on top of it. And that's, I think, when I look at, what people, when I see the estimates that we create for these types of projects, most of it is integration. Very little of it is blockchain.
So what's keeping software as a service vendors from, and this feature they added to their platform, platform, and then you take advantage of that, and assuming, you know, it's a green field and you can, you know, you're using new software as a service.
Like blockchain as a service.
Well, blockchain is a service, but can, you know, if you're adopting a variety of software as a service platform, you're creating a new cloud service and you're adopting SaaS type of offerings, what's keeping the SaaS vendors from adding blockchain as a feature service to their product, and then you just create that as part of your solution?
The short answer is that's exactly what we think is going to happen. All right, you're going to come up with certain business processes, especially some of the very well-known business processes that are out there, and they will have, you know, proven, just like EDI, right? There was an EDI transaction for X, Y, and Z. There'll be a same type of similar experience, right, but with a distributed ledger instead of an EDI engine, right, sitting there. We do think that will take off, but we also think that you'll have repeatable business processes, that you'll just be able to go to, like, say, Azure, go into the marketplace, and it'll say what kind of transaction and what blockchain do you want to use, and that repeatable process, you know, complete with this diagram, will come up, and you'll be able to manage it. Right, and it'll be blockchain X as a service, right? I mean, that's where we think it's going, and that's how we want to help our customers, is to build that out. Do we have that today? We don't. We have blockchain itself as a service. You can go in and build a node and ask other people to join, and we'll build those for you and distribute them in different regions in our cloud. You can decide where they live in our cloud. Right, and they can be owned by different people, right, and have different subscriptions. We can do all that, and that literally gets deployed in moments, which is still hard to do, but it's moments, you know, from pushing a button. But all the integration pieces, right, and those common workflows as a service don't really exist yet today. But there's lots of people working on them, especially in the financial world. Yep.
Oh, Vishwa.
Yes.
Probably our last question.
Last question.
Yeah. So, Susie, what's being done to sort of, you know, go to consortiums like, you know, the notaries of the country to say to adopt that as a common standard? Is that work being done with Microsoft as well?
You know, people are talking about it,
Yep.
right? Think of postal service. I mean, there's so many different applications of this.
Yep.
I think the biggest challenge right now is, you know, there is no agreement on, you know, and everybody, the technology is changing so rapidly. There's different types of blockchains coming out. You know, Bitcoin's one, Ethereum's another. I mean, IBM standardized on one. I can't remember the name. Hyperledger. You know, so when you look at this, which one do you choose to build on? And I think everybody's still trying to figure out, you know, where's this going to go? How's it going to morph? How's it going to change? And I think the only way that it will grow is by people building proof of concepts and then deploying production systems and people learning very quickly from it. I do think once it begins to take off, right, it's going to be difficult. I mean, you're already seeing kind of the middlemen banks, right, getting fearful and trying to be able to play with this. So.
Okay, thank
Thank
you. If Susie, I don't know if you're able to stick around for longer, but maybe you can catch her and ask more questions.
Or Susie A at Microsoft.com.
Yep.
Yep,
you can-
that's right.